played your part in environmental conservation with the theme "A Press for the Planet: Journalism in the Face of Environmental Crisis." And this is what we shall be focusing today, as we have a guest right here with us in the studio, who is a seasoned environmental journalist, and we also have on standby the director of programs for Mungo Bay, an international environmental news platform, as they shall be speaking to us today on the thematics of environmental conservation, and of course also advising young journalists on how to scale through this particular profession. My name is Jabi Giti. We'll take on this jingle break. When we come back, we let you know, or we start the program in total. Welcome back. You're just in time to continue the program. It's a pleasure to have your company because, of course, we'll not be here every day to talk without you being there to listen. And today, as earlier highlighted, we shall be focusing on the theme for this year's World Press Freedom Day, which is a media for the planet. How can we as journalists, media men and women join community members and the globe at large in fighting against some environmental problems that we are facing? Environmental problems as climate change, plastic pollution, about diversity laws, IUU fishing, and a whole lot of others. But of course, just before we get into that, if you're a fervent follower of the show, you know it's a rubric that whenever we come here, we first of all tell you what is happening in Cameroon and the globe at large as concerned to the environment. We start first here in Cameroon, as some secondary school students here in Buea have been trained on the production of organic liquid fertilizers, rather, as part of the plan to push forward regenerative agriculture to the community. This was organized by Voice of Nature Vonad in collaboration with Regenerative Agriculture Hub. Let's watch this report and get more info as concerns that particular activity. Mount Cameroon, a biodiversity hotspot in Buea, southwest region of Cameroon, with different species of flora and fauna. However, this abundance of nature, especially plant species, are facing threats of depletion.
The rapidity with which the climate is changing today is posing serious threats to a lot of things, including agricultural output. And because of this, a lot of persons are encroaching into protected area, most especially into the Mount Cameroon National Park in search of arable land.
It is in this light that the non-profit institution Voice of Nature Vonad, in partnership with Regenerative Agriculture Hub, have trained some 50 secondary school students of Government High School Bokova, plus their parents, on the production of organic liquid fertilizers.
And so we thought it wise that if we are able to educate the community to be able to use organic fertilizer, we will boost their farm yield and will be able to divert their attention from converting more farmland, more forests into farmland to their communities where they can get maximum output on a small piece of land.
It is a timely training because we are at the first phase of our planting season. In Cameroon, we have 2 planting seasons and we are at the first phase of our planting season. And it is often said that if you want to go far, then go with people. And young people occupy 70% of the world's population.
These students and parents are inhabitants of some of the villages at the foot of Mount Cameroon.
I'm very happy for the thing where they teach us today. Because something of this nature, we used to go buy artificial thing them from market to come apply for our own crop. But this one when a natural fertilizer, it is very good.
I'll try to make mine on my own, then call on them to come and see if I did exceptionally well.
The main reason or the aim for us learning how to use liquid fertilizers and how to produce them is to be able to teach our parents, our friends, who are out there, and some of them who farm at the Mount Cameroon area.
A rendezvous has been set for the parents and students to see the final product of the training, of which they will have a sample of it to apply in their farms, with hopes that they continue to produce these organic fertilizers at their individual levels. And of course, from the corridors of Buea subdivision, we take you now to Kenya, as the government of Kenya and the Red Cross have announced that more than 181 people have been killed since March due to floods and landslides. Yes, floods and landslides across Kenya have killed 181 people since March, with hundreds of thousands of persons forced to leave their homes, as was announced on Wednesday by the government of Kenya and the Red Cross. Torrential rain and floods have destroyed homes, roads, bridges, and other infrastructures across the region. The death toll in Kenya exceeds that from floods triggered by the El Nino weather phenomenon last year. In the central Kenya town of Mai Mahiu, where about at least 48 died in flash floods on Monday, 2 bodies were recovered from the debris on Wednesday, said by the Red Cross in Kenya. And that it should be recorded that since last year, 2023, Kenya has witnessed several flooding situations with bridges destroyed. And as about this last announcement from the government and the Red Cross, more than 181 persons have been killed, with many others displaced. We're hoping that that recovery mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that the victims recover easily. And from Kenya, we take you to India, where part of India record hottest April as heat wave kills 9 persons. Yes, you heard it right. New Delhi, Eastern India, experienced its hottest April on record as heat waves scorched parts of the country amid a general election, killing at least 9 people. The weather office on Wednesday forecast above normal temperatures for May too. And so the weather forecast in India is also indicating that we may have, or India may face higher heat waves in the month of May, given that 9 persons have died already this April from increasing heat waves. And of course, we talk about climate change that is partly responsible for the increased heat waves. And from India, we take you to Indonesia, where a volcanic eruption has killed people, and hundreds of residents of Indonesia's island were waiting at the island port to be evacuated on Wednesday, as footage from the National Search and Rescue Agency showed while grey smoke continued to erupt from the Ruang volcano. And this is some of the news items we cooked for you this afternoon to let you know as to what is happening, and to also give you some kind of concern because the rainy season is coming, and it could be a good time to draw from the experiences of other countries and see how we can prepare for the rainy season that is coming. Because when we look at the situations of Kenya and the floods, we think of our towns of Limbe and Douala, and we can only hope that the necessary procedures are put in place to ensure that, or to reduce the impact in case it does happen. We take on a jingle break. When we come back, we go into our topic of conversation for today. Welcome back. You're still on to Nature's Corner. If you're still watching us, or if you're just joining us, Nature's Corner is a program on the airwaves of High Television, and this program is aired on High TV every 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. where we come to sensitize you about some environmental issues and to tell you how these things affect you and what you can do to join the train and solve some of these issues. And today we are talking about environmental journalism, cornering World Press Freedom Day, as the theme for this year is a media for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. And to talk about this particular topic for today, we have a seasoned journalist in the house who has garnered years of experience in environmental journalism. He is the publisher and managing editor of Voice of Nature News, and is the founder of VONAT, a non-governmental institution here in Bowie. I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Dimo Sancho. Good morning. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jabi, and thank you for giving me this platform and this opportunity to talk about what I love talking about the most and love doing the most.
All right, we are talking about World Press Freedom Day. You're a journalist yourself. Even before we tipped towards the environment, this is a day that journalists always celebrate every year, and garnering for freedom of speech and all of that. As a journalist, to you personally, what does World Press Freedom Day mean to you?
World Press Freedom Day to me is a very important day. It is one of those days that the importance of press freedom is brought into perspective, and we are able to spotlight some of the challenges that we go through as journalists in the form of arrest, imprisonment, the different risks that we go through as we exercise our duties, our functions of news gathering, processing, and dissemination. And it is one of those days that you see every other media organ, every other mainstream media, online media, they come together and they speak with one voice, drawing the attention of the international community, the national community on the plight of journalists. And it gives me that pride to know that I'm a journalist and to know that some of the challenges I go through are being heard. You know, some of the time you get the fulfillment just knowing that people understand what you're going through, even if sometimes the solutions don't come exactly at the time you desire.
Yes, of course, it is a day for journalists to come up with one voice to speak against, to speak for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and all the likes. And this year, they are calling on us to come up with one voice to speak about nature. Quite surprisingly, I would say it's a it's a surprising aspect. When I heard it, I was like, okay, this is new.
yeah. I mean, it means that people are coming to terms with the reality that we have just one planet. And every hands have to be on deck to see how we can contribute efforts. We can form a united front across different walks of life to protect it and to make sure that it is comfortable for every person to thrive, both humanity and wildlife.
But then again, how relevant is a theme for this year? They're talking about a media for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. How relevant is this theme in our today's world?
It's very relevant. I mean, you understand the important role of journalism, the important role of journalists in fighting environmental crisis. And if you are talking about a press for the planet, journalism in the face of environmental crisis, is to say that everybody is living in the planet. There's just one planet. The journalists are living in the planet. Farmers, doctors, presidents, we are all living in this one planet. And if the planet is in peril, it is but normal that journalists who are the watchdog of the society should be able to stand up and raise their voices. You know, the press is a very powerful tool when it comes to fighting crisis, especially environmental crisis. And with the rate at which environmental problems are increasing, the proliferation of many environmental challenges on a day-to-day basis. I talk about what many people term the triple planetary crisis, in the form of you have climate change, you have biodiversity loss, and you have pollution, and they're increasing, and the impacts are being felt on a daily basis, and so there was just no way that this will not be brought to the limelight. You know, every year since the institution of World Press Freedom Day by UNESCO in 1993, there is always a theme that is usually brought to the limelight, and the essence is so that very crucial and very crucial issues that maybe could otherwise go unnoticed are given proper attention. And you see non-governmental organizations, governments, and every other persons, you see, they come together and they start talking about this issue. And this issue normally would not be brought to the limelight if it wasn't zoomed on and made a theme of an international event, and in our case, Press Freedom Day. Yeah,
Press Freedom Day, and it's very significant because, of course, we realize the importance of journalists in societies and the role that they play in canvassing for change.
Absolutely.
But with this particular topic, one may be tempted to ask, how do we go about it as journalists? A media for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. How do we as journalists contribute our part towards environmental conservation? What role do we have to play, and how do we play it?
Yeah, the role we have to play here is the awareness-raising role. The awareness-raising role. One of the key ways to build a democratic society is bringing awareness. And talking about the building a democratic society in the face of climate crisis, people need to first of all understand what this climate crisis are. They need to understand what the planetary crisis are, and it is the place of the media men and women to be able to bring this to the limelight. And when these are brought to the limelight, people will be aware of it, and when they're aware of it, they'll be able to make informed decision. And it's a responsibility as journalists to be able to report on the causes and consequences of some of these environmental challenges. We are talking here about environmental degradation, species depletion. When we focus on reporting on the causes and the consequences of these challenges, it's able to bring together public opinion and move them to take action that contributes to the solution. Maxwell Malcolm and Donald Shaw in the agenda setting theory highlight the importance of the media in shaping perspective and public opinion, which means that the media determines what the public thinks about, and determines what the public prioritizes. And if media men and women across the world are able to set the agenda in the area of bringing to the limelight some of the environmental challenges that sometimes go even unnoticed, sometimes go even unreported, it is going to be a subject of discussion, it's going to be thought about in every public sphere, and of course, when there is a joint effort towards a particular challenge, it is sure that the solution will be fast in coming, and it will be easy to be able to reverse the challenges and to reverse the crisis that we are facing. And to also say that the media plays the watchdog role.
Okay.
And when we are talking about the watchdog role, media has that responsibility to hold government to account. It is the responsibility of you and I as environmental journalists to be able to bring government to take account, especially on policies that are not environmentally friendly. And for policies that the government has put in place that are environmentally friendly, we as journalists, it's our responsibility to make sure that these policies are implemented.
Okay, but it comes at a time where also we are also clamoring for freedom of expression, and we are clamoring against the impunitive measures put against journalists who have taken that road before, watchdogging government institutions to give account for some certain things in the system. Now, when it concerns the environment, is it not that it risks that when journalists try to watchdog the government, trying to alarm against some of these policies that have been adopted, or those that have not been implemented, don't they also stand a risk of facing these impunitive measures?
Of course. I mean, as a journalist, you know that your life is on the line. It's either you are living as a free person, or you know that you'll be in the prison. That's just the life of a journalist. It's a very risky profession, and we cannot start naming the number of journalists that have been incarcerated before. The Committee for the Protection of Journalists noted that apart from armed conflict, environmental reporting is the second most risky bit to focus on. And statistics shows that within the last 10 years, about 2,000 journalists, environmental journalists, have been killed in the line of carrying out their duty. And this is very prevalent, especially for those who focus on reporting about illegal logging, wildlife trafficking, mining activities, legal mining activities, and so on, because a lot of persons eat fat from these illegal activities. And when you go as a journalist to play a watchdog role and to bring this to the limelight, you are playing your own role in nation building, but at the same time you are stepping on toes, and those toes cannot leave you like that. So you have now to be able to strike a balance between performing your responsibility as a journalist and staying alive.
Very important. You have to strike a balance between performing your responsibilities as a journalist and staying alive. And yes, today we're talking about environmental journalism, or journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. And we're about to look at a pertinent issue. between journalism and environmental journalism. If I think it's one aspect I want to have a clarification on. If I report on plastic pollution today, am I an environmental journalist? Is that what makes me an environmental journalist? But just before you answer that, we take on we meet David Akana. David Akana is a Cameroonian who has worked as a journalist here in Cameroon and is presently the director of programs for Mongabay, an international environmental news outlet. David Akana takes us through his journey as an environmental journalist and also tells us what environmental journalism comprises of. And when we come back, we continue with Ndimo Sancho and we talk more about the issue of environmental journalism.
Important for me to move into, coordinating probably one of the most important project on the continent, which is Mongabay. Because we're trying to expand in this market. That's because for me, there's no issue that's more important right now than climate change and environmental issues. Whether you're talking about climate, biodiversity, pollution, land degradation, in my view, they are the most important thing and the most important thing for this century, because if you look at how our climate is changing, we cannot in any way build sustainable development without taking into consideration those things. So for me, I had a chance to be able to contribute in the sense of putting in place a team that at least starts to expand and grow and get journalists to report on these issues. So I found that as a very interesting challenge and I got into it as a director of programs. So that's what I'm doing right now. No, it wasn't easy because I did sports reporting first. Keep that in mind, right? I started off as a sports reporter. And later on, I made a decision. Well, it wasn't even a decision because it was an accident because I never prepared to get into environmental journalism. So when I went to Yaoundé in 2000, I started to work for the Post and later on Radio Rennes. And then IUCN created a radio. IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. It's one of the largest NGOs, environmental NGOs in the world. And when I started to work, when they called me into Radio Environnement, I then made a decision that I wanted to focus on this. So I started to get a few training in Nairobi with the United Nations Environment Program. That's how I started to get a little bit interested and then perfect my knowledge and then perfect my reporting. But I'd have to say that a lot of what has changed over the years is most of the trainings that I've done, but it's also the personal zeal to want to improve your understanding and skills in this particular direction. It is not far-fetched actually, because we've been doing it already. So if you report on, for instance, about Mount Cameroon, you're talking about environmental issues, right? If there is heavy rainfall in Boya and it flows into people's houses and destroys people's houses, and it means in some cases people die, that's environmental journalism. If you have land erosion, for instance, in Limbe, that's environmental information and environmental news. If now you have pollution, maybe in the oceans in Limbe, if you go and sit on the beach and you see the beach is all having this trash, plastic things coming in from the sea, those are environmental issues. Lake Nyos, those are all environmental issues. I'm talking about those that are close to us. If you're looking, for instance, at, cocoa farming, whether it's in Muyuka, whether it's in Mundemba, whether it's in Kupe Mwaninguba, the interaction between that particular activity and the forest, that's all environmental stuff. And at some point, if you're looking at Lake Mwaninguba, Lake Nyos, and if it's diminishing, is it not because of climate change? You have to look at those relationships. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's in any way climate change caused, because you still have to speak to a scientist to be sure that those things are actually caused by climate change. So that's what environmental journalism is all about. The difference is just between someone doing sports journalism, culture journalism, economic reporting or whatever, political reporting or whatever, but you focus on these issues. Now, I don't want you to think about these issues as silos, because environmental journalism is economy, it's finance, it's agriculture, it's energy. So environment and climate is in all these other different areas.
You called for journalists to not just report about the rain today and skip to other things, but for them to specialize in environmental journalism. What is the need and importance of this specialization?
Well, specialization does a whole host of things, right? First of all, it allows you to know what you're talking about, because I think it's always important to say that, let's say science is not the most easy thing to understand. It's very complex, and you have to properly understand it for you to be effective. And so I think specialization helps in the sense that it grows a critical mass that's able to unpack this very difficult topic, like climate change, to an audience that do not necessarily know all of these different things and can even say it in a local dialect. That's why it is important for people to specialize. And keep in mind, if we're going to have to mobilize, whether it is the population, the citizens, the governments, whether municipal, regional, or national, and the businesses to take actions to address the urgency of these different issues that we've raised, you're going to have to provide them with all the necessary information. So awareness raising is so critical. Providing them the information that they need is so critical. Providing them the data that they need is so critical. And to do that, you have to specialize and know how to write a compelling story, right? Because to write a compelling story, there's a whole process. It's about how you do your intro. It's about how you do the title of your story, the intro, and how you build the body work. What photos, what visuals you use to illustrate, what data you use to illustrate. You have to be specialized to be able to know those things. However, I'm not saying that only specialists can do it, no, because then other people cannot join the field. And as a matter of fact, you need more people in this area than we have ever needed before.
That was David Akana, the Director of Programs at Mongo Bay, an international environmental news platform, and of course a born Cameroonian, was passed through the corridors of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication right here in the University of Buea, of course telling us what the rubrics of environmental journalism entails. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still on to the program Nature's Corner right here with me, Jabi Kitty, and I still have my other panelists with me, Demo Sancho, and we are talking about World Press Freedom Day and the theme for this year, which is a media for the planet and the journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. Now, I'd want to explore a little bit into your environmental journalism journey. Just behind the scenes, we're talking about how the aspect of environmental journalism is not easy, and how it takes passion to stay consistent in that particular field. Now, what got you into the corridors of environmental journalism? When did you sit and say, environmental journalism is what I want to do in this life?
Yeah, it's a little story that I would like to share with you and with our viewers. I grew up in a village in the northwest region of Cameroon known as Bambalang, and it was a tradition for us to go every day to chase away monkeys, chimpanzees, and other wildlife from eating maize and groundnut in our farm, and getting incredible stories about these species from my grandmother just around the three-stone fireside with very interesting moral lessons. And so it was interesting to see these monkeys hover from one branch of the tree to another. And so every morning I would be the first person to go, and they were thinking that this was a very committed son and respectful son, not knowing that I was enjoying myself just seeing these animals as their agility on the forest. But I came to the university and did journalism and mass communication like every other journalism student, and in the course of doing this, I just started feeling bad at the way people just litter the environment. I just developed a hatred for it. The
UB, for instance,
and that pushed me to work together with a few friends from the Department of Environmental Science, and we started an environmental radio program on Chariot FM known as Environmental Perspective.
What year was that?
That was in 2009, 2010. So we started an environmental radio program. I don't know if it was sustained since I left. Environmental Perspective. And we started just talking about waste management, environmental degradation. So when I graduated and went to the village, I couldn't find the monkeys again, and I was devastated. I asked, they were all haunted, and part of the forest was now occupied by farmland. So with this frustration, I told myself, I have to advocate for the conservation of this species. And that is how I came back and volunteered with a number of media houses in Douala, and also came to High TV. So you're High TV breed. Hello. I was in High TV for close to 1 year, and because of my love for the environment, which the management quickly figured it out, most environmental beats were allocated to me. So in course of doing this, I got connected with an environmental non-profit organization that decided to take me over, and that is where I was engaged in working for them, and also started as assistant editor for one of the pioneer environmental newspapers, the Green Vision newspaper, and I moved on from there to become the editor-in-chief. and also grew up within the Environment and Rural Development Foundation, ERODEF, to be its from communication officer to director of communication, and so this passion continued to me. But discovering that I wasn't able to appropriately communicate on environmental issues to the extent I desired, and to be able to navigate my way through its jargons and its high-sounding scientific terms, I decided to go back and do a master's in environmental communication.
Okay.
But I searched and I couldn't find such a program in Cameroon. I got a scholarship. I was admitted to do it in the Lincoln University, but I didn't have funds. So I decided to do a master's in natural resource and environmental management as a shortcut.
Yeah.
So that I could blend my journalism and mass communication background with
the environmental science.
And it's from there that when I graduated, I had to take it a step forward to set up an environmental news platform that will be able to raise awareness and educate the public on how to be able to sustainably manage the natural resources. But I was able to go to the field and investigate environmental stories and bring to the limelight and give recommendations, and then I'll be hoping that some organization will pick this up and implement. But that was not forthcoming, and I said, but I needed to go beyond just bringing to the limelight to actually carrying out on-the-ground action to contribute to protecting the environment. That is how Voice of Nature, VONAT, the non-profit organization, was born. So I think that is my brief journey.
So approximately like about how many years are we? I'm sure it's more than a decade already.
Yes, it's more than a decade. I started the Environmental Perspective radio program in 2009, 2010. I can't actually put a finger on the exact year, but then came to High TV. While at High TV, I was also covering many other bits as assigned to me by management.
As a regular journalist.
As a regular journalist. But when it came to environmental bits, they will always assign me.
Take this one.
Go and take this one. So those are some of the elements of my days in the of my journey through environmental journalism. So if you want to sum it from 2010, it's about 14 years.
14 years
into environmental journalism.
I know sometimes I used to say that when we were in school, like I used to say we didn't know much about environmental journalism, because I would say it was about 3 years back that I got embraced in the field, because while we were in school, we didn't have these people we could look up to say, okay, these are environmental journalists. You know, in the school radio, you have things like Feminine Perspective, You and the Law, gender programs, cultural programs, but all throughout school, I never heard of any environmental program. And even when we came to the mainstream media, when we after school, I still did not hear of any environmental program right here on the media platform. So I think that you starting a radio program and with this one, it's something that the youth could emulate, you know. But now the question is, how has the journey been? Has it been rosy or has it been rocky?
It's been very challenging. I mean, right from my days in the University of Buea, teaching radio, Childhood FM, to have a resource person was never easy for the program. What even helped me to be able to sustain the program a little bit was because I partnered with the Environmental Science Student Association, ESA, and they had to draw like a schedule among themselves to always send persons to come for interview. Some of the time we organized calling program, but we didn't get as much popularity as the other programs. So it was a little discouraging. And at the time when you didn't actually have a role model you could look up to, and anybody that could counsel you on how to go about it. So we only tried to depend on the internet to get the little information we could get, and from there we moved on to being editor-in-chief, and it was challenging. The worst area to get into is to try to report on wildlife trafficking, and to try to report on the killing of species within a protected area. You know, you can really have it hard with the conservator, because it's like you're exposing him.
It's his area of work.
His area of work. You're exposing him that he's not doing it well. Remember an incident that one time I went to, I will not call the conservator's name because the conservator is still is known and is a very popular person around this area. Went to his office and he sent me out. He sent me out that I didn't report well. I didn't So I was like, but is there any fact I misplaced? I could still do a corrigendum.
Or you could take me to court if you think there's any misplaced fact.
It could be a corrigendum. I mean, so you start to get that backlash, and you cannot. I just thank God that He protected me all through, and I wasn't harmed. But
I think this is one of the issues we're talking about, since we're also talking about World Breastfeeding Day. First of all, lack of access to information and certain contacts when it concerns the government, certain data, and also your security after you've managed to release your report. Aside these, what are some of the challenges you face within this particular thematic, and how did you handle it so maybe other persons watching could know how to find your way around?
Yes, one of it was the technical aspect. Being able to communicate effectively and to understand the environmental jargons and to break it down in a way that a simple person, a common man can. I have really improved tremendously from when I just started. I mean, a lot of persons, when I go to community to do sensitization, they say, but this thing wasn't like this before.
Yeah, it's
we
much more simple.
We did not understand this before. It's simpler. And so that is one of it. And the second part of it is that you have to read. You have to read. You have to have passion for it. If you don't have passion for it, there is no way you are going to spend your time to be reading scientific things and looking for its meanings and better ways of expressing them in a way that a common man can understand and identify with. So it takes reading, it takes training, it takes exposing yourselves to interacting with other persons in different parts of the world that are also into environmental reporting, environmental communication, and reading. One of the key environmental platforms that really inspired me and oriented my ability to write and communicate on environmental issues is Monga Bay. I'm so happy that you interviewed the program director. It's Monga Bay, and I read a lot about how the angling, how they were able to, structure their sentences, their approach to news, and that greatly inspired me and oriented my ability to report on environmental issues.
Okay, more than a decade of environmental journalism, and we're hoping that this inspires other people to get into the field, even not as a full-time environmental journalist, but at least you do something that advocates for one aspect of the environment. It could be plastic pollution, it could be climate change. If you see something wrong going on in your community that is tilted towards the environment, you can just do something about it and make a report about it. But now we want to bring the question, more than a decade of environmental journalism, what are some of the hallmarks of it that, okay, you've done this, which you feel like it created much impact in the environmental sector? Maybe there was this report that, or this number of reports that you feel like, okay, it reached out to the audiences, or something you did as an environmental journalist, which was a hallmark in your career and community impact.
Yes, there are a good number of them, but I'm going to focus on some of the most recent ones. Okay. I did a documentary on the world's largest frog, the Goliath frog, and this documentary received about 700 likes and a good number of comments. And the documentary is one of the key tools that actually shot me into the limelight, and especially within the National Geographic Society landscape, and has actually opened me to many opportunities and fellowships. I have about different fellowships that I've gotten into, and each time they want to address me, they address me the frogman. They address me the frogman, and it's thanks to this environmental report. Another report I did sometime in 2014 was on the Tico mangrove, which I look about the 1 ton, unemployment drives 1 ton destruction of the Tico mangrove. I'm not able to get the exact headline for that report. I mean, I didn't actually get recognition for it, but I saw it cited by a good number of scientific publications. Okay. And so that gave me the encouragement that it is making impact.
Yeah, it is.
It is making impact. Over and above all, I think that consistency and staying in that niche not being a fair weather kind of Christian
environmental journalist.
Sorry, I'm saying Christian. It's difficult to hide your identity.
Yeah.
Not being a fair weather journalist that runs where it looks juicy. It has been able to help me put myself to an extent like an authority to a greater extent, because I receive calls from international media houses for interviews, media houses nationally for interviews, people I didn't even know about them, and so on. And just to also say that this documentary on the frog, which also won me a contract, and I had to do another production on artisanal fishing, that is mainstreaming gender perspective into artisanal fishing in the Kombo Mabanda community in Douala. So it's another journalist that saw it and recommended me to a Cameroonian that was based in Canada and had to do this production as part of his PhD program. And so you see that it actually played a great role in bringing me to the limelight.
Okay, so it may seem rocky from the beginning, or rocky as it goes, but surely there is light at the end of the tunnel, and the passion and consistency will get you there and will give you the deserved acknowledgement. So says Dimo Sancho right here on the program Nature's Corner. But then again, we are encouraging more environmental journalists, or more journalists rather, to join in the advocacy, or to join the reporting of environmental issues, because as we can highly recall, if you move around the media landscape in Cameroon, you'd find maybe little programs centered on environment purely, or journalists who are working purely on environmental issues, just as we have health journalists, political journalists, and sport journalists. We're hoping that we can have more environmental journalists. But now the question is to maybe young ones watching, or every other journalist watching and wondering, how did they get into the field? How did they somersault their way into the field? How is it like? What advice will you give to them on how to get into the field and how to excel in it?
I always tell people that there are 3 stages in the life of every person. There is that stage where you sit and you are taught. You gain knowledge. You just sit and you are just getting knowledge. And there is that stage where you try to practicalize that knowledge. You try to network. And then there is that stage when you sit and money follows you. And so I would tell you that you should be able to move through that ladder.
Okay. You
should not skip. Trust the process. It's a whole process.
You're not coming one day and you want to start traveling all around like the other people who have been there years before you.
Sure. You have to go through the process. But many of us today, we look for the shortcut to getting there. So it will require that you study well. It will require that you actually build a passion for it that is not based on the monetary or the so-called juicy part of it. It is not just about environmental journalism. It cuts across every aspect of life. So the first thing is that develop passion for it. Have something that is driving you. Have a story. What is it that is driving you? If you don't have a drive, if your push is money, when money ends, you stop.
Yeah, that's true.
That is why we have a lot of journalists that start on environmental issues today and tomorrow they disappear. But if you are coming there by a particular drive, if you have a passion because the pungent scent of a particular environment got you irritated, and that is your motivation. If you have a passion that a particular tree that maybe was a medicinal plant for you got cut, and you vow that you save other trees, that is a kind of an intrinsic motivation that can make you to be consistent in pursuing environmental journalism. But when you are consistent in doing it, money will eventually follow. When we are talking about environmental crisis, it means that it is a problem.
Yeah.
And since it is a problem, you have to proffer solution. And of course, the richest persons in this world are those who have been able to provide the most innovative solutions to problems that are affecting the vast majority of people.
All right, thank you very much.
And so when you focus on providing the solutions, money will definitely follow you because you are providing a solution to problem.
Of course. Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Sancho, for speaking to us today about journalism and the planet. We'll take on a jingle break. When we come back, we still have Sancho right here. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still on to Nature's Corner right here over High Television, and today we're talking about World Press Freedom Day and an environmental crisis. As a theme for this year's World Press Freedom Day is focusing on environmental journalism, or the role of journalists in the environmental crisis and fighting against some environmental problems. And World Press Freedom Day will be celebrated tomorrow, 3rd May 2024, and it is an annual affair. And since we're talking about journalists and the crisis, our guests right here, Sancho and even David Akana, have spoken to us about the role of journalists in the environmental crisis, how to garner for attention towards these environmental problems, and how to excel in the profession as an environmental journalist. And you may be wondering at home now, why is this topic particular? Why is it so interesting? Just before we take leave of you, I would have Mr. Sancho right here give us a brief of some of the problems that we are facing that could warrant this year's particular celebration to focus solely on planetary issues. Mr. Sancho, what are some of the dire issues that we are facing in the world, and even in Cameroon in particular, using Cameroonian examples so that our audience can better understand?
Yes, I'll bring you back to what I started talking about earlier on, which is what many people term the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution.
Yeah.
Now, talking about biodiversity loss, we have about 623 species that are threatened on the IUCN Red List, with 183 of them on the brink of extinction. And these at a time when wildlife trafficking is on the increase, at a time when hunting for pet trade and bushmeat is on the increase. And this means that if no urgent actions are taken, we are going to be losing a good number of species in the next couple of years. And this is going to have a devastating effect on our ecosystem. It's going to have a devastating effect on our planet. There are some species that, by their feeding habit, contribute enormously to limiting the spread of diseases. Take, for example, the frogs, like the Goliath frog. It contributes enormously to, through its feeding habit, it feeds on the liver of mosquitoes and so on, and this reduces its population. And the pangolins and many other species, through their feeding habits, they help in regulating. And so if they disappear, you can imagine the effect. Moving from loss of species to quickly come to climate change, you see that the rapidity with which the climate is changing is having a serious toll on our life and livelihoods. And to tell you that climate disasters are rampant, and the impacts of climate change are being felt by everybody, including you and I. The National Climate Observatory has been sending out its periodic newsletter giving warnings about heat waves and so on. And it even stated that this month of April, right up to the early April, we're going to be having heat waves of up to 40 degrees. And 2023 was the hottest year. And 2024 is also promising to even be hotter than 2023.
Yeah, it was indicated the month of February in 2024 was the hottest month ever.
And even in your report in India, the month of April was the hottest month.
Yeah.
And these have impact because you start having different diseases. You start having burns. You start having nasal diseases, which some can cause, you have asthma, you start having a lot of other diseases that can come with this. And now, moving from climate change, you talk about floods. In 2023, none of the floods that happened here in Boya that led to the death of 2 persons and affected over 300 persons. None of the flood that happened in Bankomo in October.
In Bankolo, in Yaoundé.
Yes, in Yaoundé, in October last year, that over 30 persons died and thousands of
persons were displaced.
And you come right to Limbe, you have the floods and landslides that about 4 persons died, and you also have a good number of persons. And we are getting to the heart of the rainy season, which shows that we risk having more of these climate disasters affecting us. And so these are just a few of the crises. When you come to plastic pollution, statistics shows that over 600,000 tons of plastics are generated, and out of these, we just have about 30% of it that is recycled. What happens to the other 70%? is something that I hope I got my statistics well. It's something that we cannot tell, and so some of these end up in the gutter, that end up causing the floods, deadly floods that we are experiencing,
blocking the drainage
system, causing choleras and so on. A good number of these crises, when they happen, we journalists, we just go and report it. We follow the governor and go and report. And after that,
to what the governor has said.
What the governor has said. After that, it ends there. So, very important things like the story of the common man, how the common man is losing his sources of life and livelihood as a result of this climate crisis, a climate change that he has contributed little or nothing to its happening. And this is where climate justice comes in. But we are not talking about climate justice now, but we are saying that the journalist ends at the level of just that reporting. The journalist needs to dig deeper, to investigate, to tell the story of these marginalized people, of these indigenous people that are being affected by this climate change. And this is going to cause Western countries that are the one contributing greatly to this climate change to be able to contribute resources that these people can easily adapt to the climate change they are causing. And this is some of these are some of the reasons that I think this year's theme is now talking about journalists and the planet. We need to start bringing some of these issues that are happening in our environment to the limelight. Some of these environmental challenges to the limelight. We need to start talking about their causes, their consequences, and holding government to account to make policies and implement policies that can be able to help the common man better adapt his lives and livelihoods to the changing planet and to the increasing environmental challenges.
Okay, hopefully that the journalists are listening and taking notes from Mr. Sancho. And we need to investigate and hold the government accountable and contribute our own quota towards environmental conservation. And on that note, we do well to also celebrate some journalists who have been making a contribution towards this particular environment, because we cannot just speak as if we exist in an island because some other persons have been doing the work. I think I want to start myself first. I'll give accolades here. I think I've also...
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let me help you with accolades. I watched your documentary on diving into the sea. It was wonderful, and you are doing well. Your reports have been so inspiring. So let me give you the flowers.
I just feel like I should cry right now. All right, and of course, let me also give the flowers to the person seated right beside me with over 14 years of experience, and also one of my guests, David Akana, who has also contributed much efforts towards environmental journalism. I'm also thinking about you, Shimo Trust, an environmental journalist who has also worked very much towards the conservation of our biodiversity species. I'm also extending regards to Shing Timothy, who has done a couple of reports on mangroves and even on the effects of fuel production to communities in the Congo Basin. I'm also thinking about you, Emanuela C, who has also done reports on plastic pollution. I'm extending warm greetings as well to Aminata Kemgu, our one big ocean conservationist. I'm also extending a salute to my brothers of the Francophone of the other part of the Mongo. I think of you, Yunusa. I think of you, Mr. Nwasi and Dre, and to every other journalist are putting in the efforts to ensure that the environment is being conserved. I'm not also forgetting Batata Boris right here of our CBS radio. To every journalist who has contributed and made efforts towards environmental conservation and preservation, we salute you today, and we say may you continue to do the great work that you do, to join fingers and join hands towards promoting the environment. We are slowly rounding up, but of course not without playing a game with you, Mr. Sancho. You spoke about one of the issues which we are facing right now, biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity species. We're having the biodiversity loss, and so I'll play a little game with you, but not inland, because I know inland you beat me. So let's go the marine sector. You know this game, Zinza, Zinza, or my little hands go. Do you know this game?
You teach me.
Okay, let's go. Zinza, Zinza, or my little hands go. Kaka berry, if you please. For example, name of marine species: beakweed, dolphin,
crab,
crayfish. I got you.
Fish.
I got you. You failed the game already. You took seconds to answer. You took seconds to
I know
answer.
this game. My children always play it at home.
Okay.
Yes.
And of course, when we talk about marine species, we also talk about things like the African manatee. We talk about the sea turtle. We talk about the whales, the dolphins, even to the fishes we eat. You know, the njanga, the mululos, and the local palans, the morocco, the sardines, the tilapias, and everything we eat comes from the ocean. That's why we are saying that we should preserve this ocean, because climate change is having a toll on the fish species, and over exploitation of the fish resources also are depleting these fishes. They are going into extinction, and one day we may just wake up and not have fish to put in our soup. Ladies and gentlemen, what about now? We are bidding you farewell, but of course we'll have our guest for today, Dimo Sancho, give us his final words just before we leave.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have just one planet, and it's the planet Earth. It's the only home we have, apart from another home in view for Christians who believe that exists, like myself. And so we have to do everything, because in protecting the planet, we protect ourselves. Yeah. And now it's done on us as journalists to play our role as the United Nations is calling on us to do, to make sure that we zoom our cameras, we zoom our microphones to the wild, to investigate and bring to the limelight crucial issues that will contribute to limiting the biodiversity loss. To make sure that we travel and go to the island communities in the littoral region,
in the Bakassi
Peninsula, and be able to see how rising sea level is affecting fishing communities, and be able to bring this to the limelight. And in doing all of this and capturing some of these causes and consequences of climate change, of biodiversity loss, of pollution, we will be contributing to making a better planet for all of us to live in, and also be able to hand to the next generation. That is going to be our legacy as journalists, and a legacy that we will all be proud of.
All right, thank you very much. A legacy that we'll all be proud of. And as we also call journalists to be steadfast in their reporting on environmental issues, we're also inviting you, the community members, to also join us. Do not litter around. Do not cut trees just anyhow. Do not throw plastics just about the place. And also, when you are cutting these trees, remember that you also have to plant some, and ensure that you get involved into safe environmental practices so you can keep everybody around us safe, because if we don't keep the environment safe, it comes back to affect us, and we'll be the one crying, just as we cried last year in Boya when 2 persons died from the flooding situations on 18 March 2023. Right about now, we are bidding you farewell. The technical team is signaling to us that we have passed the time allocated to us. My name is Jabi Kitty. I am your host for today, the host for the program. Technical expertise came from Claudine Tamfu. Of course, we had supervision from the editor-in-chief Alizi Komilike, and general coordination from the manager of High TV, Ayok Eno Humphrey. And to you out there watching us, thank you very much for staying glued. From us to you, it's bye-bye.